Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here so early in the morning. I want to start out, I'm emceeing today. I don't actually work for Wakanda. We'll get into me in just a second. But first, I want to talk about these wonderful sponsors for just a second. As you can see, there are quite a few sponsors. Some of you are here today. And with this kind of magnitude of support, you can clearly see the industries behind JavaScript, thank goodness, as are all of you. So throughout the day, please take a note of our sponsors. And we wouldn't be here without them. Of course, paramount of that, I would say, was 4D, who is hosting us. As I said, I don't work for 4D. I'm actually a radio host in Santa Cruz. I asked to come to the conference because I'm a programmer, and they said, why don't you MC? OK, sounds fun. So I work at UCSC. I volunteer at KOSP, which is an NPR affiliate. I do a technology podcast for about 12 years. And my colleague, Miles Elam, hopefully will be here at some point, too. Please do say hi if you want to push your business with all that. I'd love to have you on my show. I like to talk about tech. I like to inform people about tech. I also work at UCSC in a graduate division, in arts. So I do high-tech art all day. I support people doing projection work and robotics. And if you want to talk about Arduino or Node in the art space, come talk to me. We do performative technology, a whole bunch of stuff. It's kind of fun. And that's what I do for my day job. I also raise chickens. And if you want to know more about me, it's easy to do. I'm Lyle on Twitter. I also code, as I said. I'm also Lyle on GitHub. So should be really easy to find me. Speaking of Twitter, we're using this hash today. So as you make note of the different rooms you're in and things that are interesting, please do that so everybody can follow it and find out if they want to change rooms. No, I'm just kidding. But in general, find out what's happening in the conference. It's JS.everywhere. And of course, it's 2012. Simple enough. All right. The other information might be useful to you would be available at c.4d.com. And of course, this is an app. You know, I don't know how this was made, so I should find that out. But I'll let you know later. In any case, you can kind of star the conference stuff you want to see and read about it through the mobile app. Of course, the website, JS.everywhere.org, is also updated all day and will be up to the moment about what's going on. So please do keep on track of that. And then you ask me how. This is the wireless information. Take note. So Fairmont Conference, and it's 4D Inc., because, of course, we're hosted by 4D today. One of the sponsors I will highlight just because they're giving us stuff. In fact, later today, I'll be giving out 10 books. I think it's Crockford's book, an awesome book called JavaScript, The Good Parts. I hope you know it. But O'Reilly, of course, is sponsoring us as well. And they are also giving you a free ebook. So if you visit them at that URL, and I'm assuming this information is other places as well, so you don't have to scan this code right now. In any case, they'll give you a free book if you incorporate into O'Reilly. Is anyone here from O'Reilly? They're busy, I guess. In any case, we'll be giving out the books later today in some fun way. So again, my name's Lyle, and I'll be hosting and emceeing today a little bit. And our first speaker can come on up. Bill Walker is an engineering manager at Mozilla Labs. While working at Apple's research division, Xerox PARC, Reactivity, and Cisco, he became increasingly passionate about software process, automated testing, and helping prototypes turn into products. At Mozilla, he manages teams working on PDF.js. If you don't know about it, it's awesome. Take a look. And, of course, the Mozilla Apps runtime in general. Bill holds a PhD in computer science from the University of Illinois. And your Twitter feed, at least, tells us that you're a birder and a pianist. Is that right?
That's right.
So at the beer party later today, I'm hoping that you'll be able to play some music. I guess it depends on how drunk you get, right? Bill Walker, everybody.
Thanks, Lyle. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you being here. And I appreciate the chance to talk to you about what Mozilla is doing this year. So probably you know of Mozilla as the Firefox guys trying to make web browsing on the desktop and on the phone safe for the open web. And we're applying some of those same values to apps. And so that's what I really want to talk to you about. So as with Lyle, hopefully I'm not too hard to find on the net. And I want to start by saying what I think the values are that we're going to bring to app users, to app developers, and to app stores in our ecosystem, and then try to get to the details as quickly as I can. OK, so what is it that we're trying to do with apps from a user's point of view? What we want for our users and you being developers for your users, is that folks can buy their app once and run it everywhere on all of their platforms, all the devices they have. It's important to us that they have a notion of identity so that I'm always me across all the devices I have, regardless of who my carrier is, regardless of any of those things. That unlike other ecosystems we can think of, that it's possible to discover apps anywhere on the web or at any store that you choose to visit. And that it's possible to back up the information about those apps regardless of where they were purchased or installed. And that it's possible to manage all of the apps that you care about across all of your devices in a convenient way. So this is the proposition we're trying to offer to users, and the technologies that we know and love should make that possible. Okay, so what is the proposition for developers? Some of this I think will be really familiar. Of course, what we're trying to do here is make it so that we developers can code to fewer platforms and not have to worry about a lot of platform dependencies. That your users can find your app and install it on all their devices, as I was saying, that there aren't any arbitrary non-technological restrictions on what you're doing, that there's maybe even a programmatic way to submit your app to an app store, that, of course, there are great development tools, and that you have some way to know what's going on with your app, how many people are using it. So in this context, we're building this ecosystem. Mozilla is going to operate an app store. We're calling it Firefox Marketplace. Why are we doing that? We're doing it because we want our store to compete on a level playing field with any other app stores in this ecosystem. That's how we roll. That's our thing. There's simple APIs for delivering apps to users. We think there's a vibrant developer community. That's where you guys come in. And we're not constrained by we get to use a payment mechanism that makes sense for us. So all of this is really an ecosystem, and it was my bird watching, in fact, that took me to Costa Rica for the first time this year, and that's where this kind of fuzzy metaphor really hit home, because there I'm in the rainforest surrounded by no two trees are the same, and they're thronging with vines which have epiphytes and moss growing on them, and there's 400 species of birds and iguanas and howler monkeys and all this stuff, and it all fits together. And if all those pieces are working together, then you have this vibrant community, and that's what we're trying to create. Okay, so just, this is very dense. Let me just try to sketch out some of the interactions that are happening. So these columns are kind of the concepts in our ecosystem. Starting on the left, persona is our notion of identity, which we hope will become not just sign into websites, but maybe sign into the web, sign into the browser. Next is the backend server for your app. Then there's an app store. There's an apps in the cloud service that helps users manage their apps everywhere. And then there's a payment provider, and then on the far right, there's the user's device. So you have different flows of things that can happen. How you identify yourself is those orange arrows taking place between the device, the store, and persona. In the gray arrows, the device and the app store are communicating, letting users discover apps by searching, by recommendations, by curation, those things. Payment flows there in blue, something we've been spending a lot of energy on, and I'm happy to talk to you afterwards about that. But in brief, we have a system of generating receipts and storing them on the device and making them available across all the devices the user has. And we have a notion of both apps hosted at your server and apps that are packaged up and delivered to the device, depending on level of security and access to sensitive APIs. So that's a real quick look at that. And let me just go into a few of those nouns in a little more detail. So in this context, what is an app? So an app, I mean, our users don't really care about all of the things we're going to talk about this weekend, right? What they care about is having a great experience. And it should feel like an experience that's like all the other experiences on their device. So I like to think of it as it's a native application experience built with HTML. And in that, when I say that, what I'm talking to my browser friends at Mozilla, it's not a bookmark, it's not a tab, it's not a website. It's a native app experience that people are having. So what is an app store? An app store really can be anything that invokes our installation API, which could be as simple as like a 10-line page. But in our case, it itself is an app, right, eating our own dog food, that lets users discover, purchase, and install apps. Maybe it's also a service that validates receipts so that you can know that the user who claims to be your customer really is your customer. And also it's a set of people who are reviewing apps and curating them and making them into a valid collection that people would want to browse. Okay, so on the device itself, how do we get this native experience? Here we need what we're calling a web runtime. So we want to take all of the HTML, JavaScript, CSS stuff that we care about, make sure that that's on the device, make sure that it's not a fragmented, broken up, many different versions to confront. We want to provide access to the device. We can't have a native app experience if you can't get access to the camera, the location, contacts, those things. And we need to be able to manage receipts for purchased apps. So a web runtime, it's not a browser. It's something that really makes your HTML experience feel like a native experience on the device. OK, so that was fast. But that is kind of the big picture of how we're looking at this stuff, how we think about apps, and how we're building a whole ecosystem around it. And now I'd like to get into some more specifics. So how do we go about creating apps in this world? And I think of two different paths here. If you're starting from, I want to first talk about if you're starting from scratch. So you do have a new project, or you're coming from native app development and you haven't built mobile web stuff before. There's a lot of tools for this, including Wakanda, which is a very mature system. What I'm going to show you here is a fairly lightweight template that one of my colleagues, James Long, is working on. He's the author of Require.js, which is a tool for managing your libraries. And so I'm going to let him talk a little bit about something he's calling Mortar.
Hi, I'm James Long, and I'm going to show you how to create a web app with Mortar. Mortar is a project that gives developers a starting point for making web apps. You can download a template and immediately hit the ground running instead of spending time setting up your app. The goal of Mortar is to have a few different templates that you can download, depending on the type of app that you're making. Right now, we just have a single minimal template that comes with a few things bundled in. Things like Volo, a tool for managing web projects, Twitter Bootstrap, a UI library, a pre-built app manifest, and a general project structure in HTML to get you going. So here's what the developer can do. They can go to the Developer Hub, click Build, and go to App Templates. There's a brief introduction to Mortar, and then installation instructions. The developer can simply download a zip file and unzip it, or they can use Volo to create a project based on the template. This is easier for people who are making several apps. Let's just download the zip file.
OK, so a lot of really cool stuff in there, which I'd love to keep playing. But in the interest of time, I got to keep moving. So James has built a pretty slick way to get the basic libraries you need. He helps you bundle up the app. He helps you automatically deploy it on GitHub, which is really cool. And then you're ready to roll. So that's a great way to start from scratch. If you have an existing mobile web property that already feels like an app, then pretty much all you need to do is create a JSON manifest and host it at your domain. It might look something like this. It's got version, it's got a name, information about the developer, location of your app cache manifest, and then just some descriptive stuff that we can use to market your app in the store. And so, that you can imagine getting that going quite quickly. So by either of those two paths, you arrive at an app that's ready to list in the store. And now I want to show you my colleague Chris, who goes by Cvan, show an example of how you would actually submit an app to the store, get it approved, and have it.
Hi, I'm Cvan. I'm going to show you the Firefox Marketplace. Today we're going to be walking through the process of submitting and listing an app. Once I'm on the Developer Hub landing page, I can click Submit an App. If I am not already logged in, I will be prompted to log in using Persona. I enter my account credentials. I type very slowly. Once I am successfully signed in using Persona, I'll be redirected to the Submit Manifest page. Here I paste my manifest URL and automatically validation checks are run on the manifest to make sure it is up to par. I can now continue to the next step. On the Edit App Details page, this is where we select our categories where the app will be listed in, and we can provide additional information such as privacy policy, homepage, extended summary, and support information. I am also going to list that my app can work on all devices, and I will also upload a screenshot of the mobile view. I click Continue, and I'm done. I can also click Manage My App to view all the information that I just entered, and in the future I can edit from this page, and it will reflect on the public details page. Now from my Firefox OS phone, I'm going to launch the Marketplace. I click Search. I type the first few characters of my app. And I found it. Click. This is the public details page. Here I see the reviews for my app, I see the install button, I see ratings, and I see screenshots. I install. The app is now installed onto the home screen, and I can launch it from there. I'm not in Richmond. I'm in Mountain View. And it works. So I'm going to return to the home screen and return to the Marketplace. From here, on the top left corner, I can click the gear icon to view my settings. Here I can change my account information, or I can view the apps that I previously purchased or installed. By clicking on the Launch button, I can actually launch an application from within the Marketplace. And it still remembers I'm in Mountain View. Returning to the Marketplace, I'm going to browse some content. I'm going to click a category. Here we see the bare information for search results. On desktop, we show screenshots by default, and on mobile, I can simply click a toggle and I can view all screenshots for all the apps. And that's the Marketplace.
So, it occurs to me I may not have mentioned Firefox OS. So, the phone that you just saw, this is a tiny Linux kernel and a bunch of JavaScript. That's the whole deal. Like when my mom calls and leaves me a voicemail about her 50th anniversary party this weekend, that's all JavaScript. I dial the phone, it's a web page, the whole deal. So our first target for all of this stuff is to deliver apps on this phone next year. And part of the excitement right now around Mozilla is that we're all at the ground floor in this, and you can be part of it. So what you saw there was delivering an app to the store. It gets reviewed. It's made available. And then folks are installing it on this phone. The great thing about this phone is that there isn't like a special web runtime. All the apps on that phone are HTML apps. I mean, that's the only notion of apps. So it's a nice and clean, really straightforward model. OK. So next thing I want to show is, for those of you who don't already have one of those phones, and there aren't very many, we're also working on tools to let folks test things out. So I'm working on my own app to tie into this photography thing we were talking about. I'm trying to make an app that helps people understand when the sun is low in the sky and what direction it's coming from, which is what you want for landscape photography. So I'm working on an app that I'm calling Shot Clock. And here I am running our B2G simulator, which gives you the whole phone experience here in a window. But the nice thing is you get the console back there so you can see what's going on with your JavaScript. But here's the Marketplace app doing all of the things that Sivan was just talking about. This is hot off the presses. This build just came yesterday. So the other thing I can do is I can go to my GitHub page and right-click on the link to the manifest and say, please install this manifest as an app. And then it shows up right in the simulator. And I can try out my app in the form factor of the phone and see how it's going to work. And so here's Open Street View and my little compass that shows what times of day the sun is going to be nice and low in the sky. So this is a really great way to not just design for a small screen, but see how it's going to feel in the context of our Gaia UI on the phone. OK, so that's a real quick flavor of the ecosystem and how the apps work together. We're also, actually right now, we have an open Aurora, which is our name for alpha. So we have a sort of an Aurora version of all of this marketplace stuff for Android. So if you have your copy of Firefox Aurora, you can go to marketplace.mozilla.org and try stuff out. And in case you are not closely following this the way I am, it has been a big year for our Android offering. We really, really threw a lot of resources behind making it a lot faster. Canvas performance has gotten a lot better. And I really think we're in a place now where Gecko and Firefox on Android is a legitimate platform for delivering apps there. So visualize your app in the hands of all these Android users, plus all these folks on Firefox OS. It's pretty exciting. So how do we make this win? We build great experiences for our users. I think that's why we're all here, so we want to learn about that. Someone I had a chance to be with at DevCon 5 talked about HTML apps as natives, not tourists. And I like that metaphor a lot. So we don't want to be wearing socks with sandals and loud shirts and not talking the native language. We want to belong there. And I think we're finally at a place where HTML, CSS, and JavaScript can deliver that. And we really want to make an open ecosystem where developers can innovate without hitting arbitrary restrictions. People making app stores can do what they want to do, collect together the apps they want to curate. So what Mozilla is doing is trying to create this web runtime and get it onto as many devices as possible. Google's actually doing very similar stuff, and we'll be working with them at the various standards bodies to try to line up. What you guys do is exploit all those technologies and really make apps that feel like real apps. I think probably the biggest category of things that I see are challenges is to be awesome offline. And that's something that we don't always think about coming from the web. Native app developers probably think about that more. So that, I think, is the thing I'm thinking about most right now in my own apps, is how to be even more awesome offline. We have a lot of interesting companies who are working with us to get apps into the store for its opening next year, and maybe yours could be one of them. OK, so what is the call to action? First of all, submit your app to the store. We have an awesome review team. They're fast, they're transparent, they're thoughtful. It's a great experience. Second of all, get involved if that speaks to you. We have a really amazing volunteer contributor community. It's a great way to learn about the code. It's a great way to meet excellent people. And speaking as an engineering manager, we're hiring. We're really looking for awesome JavaScript people. So if that's you and you want to rock the open web, then come talk to me. And that is it. I don't know if we have any time for questions. I'd be happy to answer some, but thank you.
I think actually what we're going to do, Bill, you've been gracious enough to join us this evening for a roundtable at 5 o'clock. And so we'll do questions then. OK. That would be great. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Bill. As Bill breaks down and we have the next guest stand up and set up, I want to make sure that you know that the conference schedule that you've got in your lanyard here is a little out of date. Curses of print. Instead, I recommend that you go here to take a look at the schedule. Additionally, there's a form. If you go to the web app, c.4d.com, if you want to ask questions of Bill, because I've got like 6 questions that happened during that talk, and I hope you did as well, and this will continue to happen, I'm sure, today. Please go up there and submit your questions, and I will curate them for you, and we'll have a really interesting roundtable discussion. We don't have all the speakers lined up for this afternoon. The more people that show up, the more the speakers will come, but Bill is committed to staying, which is wonderful. That would be 5 o'clock in here. this afternoon.